to serve these people anyways.
Yeah, so where are these people coming from? Not from the settlements. From Israel property, right?
I understand, but for the interest of Israel, like the overall, like if they have to choose scenarios, clash with the settlers, civil war ensues. Pretty much, you're calling for the end. You've killed yourself. You've destroyed yourself. And this is how usually Jewish king, before Israel and Judea, this is how they fell. So, but civil war means the end. This is the end. So they're gonna avoid this scenario at all costs. So they're just gonna allow the settlers. They're gonna continue settlement expansion, and they're gonna seek annexation. That's just the inevitable reality. The only thing that I could say a middle ground scenario is that Israel, in a way, just pulls out of certain all these checkpoints in between the West Bank and just shores up and contains the settlements into the major blocks that they're in, and just ensure the settlements don't infringe on the Palestinians and vice versa. That would be the middle ground scenario, but that's just a ticking time bomb waiting to happen too. So you're just.
But you're assuming that's what the settlers want, and they'll be happy with that.
The right to
I think the settlers have been quietly taking positions in the government, and their goal is to take over the government. They want the government to be the settler government.
And they might do that. I feel like they've already have in a way.
I just don't think that the secular, which is predominant in Israel.
Secular, but they're not winning any elections. When was the last time they won?
I don't think it's going to be about elections. I just don't think. I don't think so. I think civil society will start breaking down.
Civil disobedience on the behalf of the left in Israel is just going to do.
No, not the left. No, I'm not saying the left. It could be the right, like the Likud party. They are secular European Jews, just like the Leftards. So we're not talking.
The Likud is Mizrahi.
Likud on the top is white European. They won't let.
Likud is a Mizrahi movement. You understand that, right?
Likud is the opposition to the. Likud was around before the Mizrahis were a majority. Likud is and if you look at the Likud, who is it? It's all these, Netanyahu and these, European Jews, and now they've attracted the Mizrahi, they've attracted the settler movements. They're using them, but like Shin Bet said, the head of Shin Bet said that the existential threat to Israel, the number one existential threat to Israel, is Jewish terror, and he's referring to the settlers. So there's going to be a day of reckoning when it comes to the settlers and to the traditional Israelis in Israel proper.
Yeah, you might as well keep their anger faced towards the Palestinians. Israel has committed. That's it. There is no reversing what Netanyahu started after Rabin. It's over. You can't reverse. You've unleashed this monster. This monster's out there. Putting him back in the cage is practically you self-sacrificing yourself. I don't think the Israelis, regardless, are not going to self-sacrifice themselves for the sake of the Palestinians. Now, whether that's for the sake of seculars, for seculars to somehow do, ensure that these these hillbilly, zealots don't take over Israeli society, well, it's too late. They already have. What are you going to do about it? You're going to do civil disobedience? Okay, civil disobedience, your way, what? I'll just unleash the Israeli police. You're just going to turn Israel into a more, draconian state, I guess. They're going to stifle all these protests. They'll probably declare state law or state of emergency. That's what they'll do, for the most likely.
Well, look at the settlers. About 700,000 of them, right? About 300,000, 400,000 actually live in that large block that bulges out into the West Bank. The rest are quality of life settlers for the most part that would gladly leave and move into Israel if there was housing in Israel. So removing the settlers is not going to be an issue. The blocks, these big cities of settlers that are attached to Israel at the base. We already agreed back in Oslo that this is going to be the 67 border. So they're going to be. No, I'm not saying Oslo. I'm saying we agreed on the 67 borders. That still stands. We're not going back to the 48, right? We agreed on the 67 borders, give or take.
There's no way.
No, these blocks are in that 67 border. So just you're not getting rid of very many settlers, and I think they will go back to Israel. I think America will pay to have housing built in Israel for them. I just and that just leaves the Palestinians in the West Bank, and now you can't really. There's no security threat. You could have like a border wall. You could have your checkpoints there, but it just leaves the West Bank open. And what's going to happen when the West Bank is open like that? We don't need a state. All we do is we need to just build for ourselves and build an economy, and that alone will give us enough credibility to where, once we're built up, there's no choice for the UN but to declare a state. I think that's a most realistic scenario, where a state will kind of sneak up, for Palestinians without, going negotiating with Israel, negotiating with the Palestinians, and it will be imposed on us, and it will be about the 67 borders.
Israel two-state solution is also a disaster for Israel. Actually,
it is.
It's again demographic collapse, inevitable demographic collapse. Like it's just you can't have peace in general, a peace scenario. Even let's say a two-state solution takes place and a peace scenario ensues. Again, Arabization is inevitable. You have a fifth of the population that's Arab. It's going to connect with the new Palestinian state. They're going to be empowered by a Palestinian state, just like how Jews are empowered by an Israeli state, by a Jewish state. Palestinians overall, all over the world, they're going to be empowered by the presence of a Palestinian.
And you don't need a two-state solution. You just need Palestinians to be left alone, and for Palestinians to be able to build an economy.
It's not about us. They don't want to leave us alone because we are an existential threat.
Yes. The threat is more if they don't leave us alone, then they would have to look internal at their own affairs. So they don't have the Palestinians to concentrate on. So even if we don't have a state,
just saying, a recipe for disaster for them.
Yeah,
at this point, it's like how much you want. How far can you delay this? Delay the inevitable.
Do you see Israel? No, forget two states. Forget two states. Do you see a scenario where Israel would be forced to allow the Palestinians to have the West Bank in terms of being able to build it, including Area C, or most of Area C, to be able to build an economy and not call it a state, but to govern themselves and build an economy?
No. I don't see them allowing prosperity even in the Palestinian territories.
Because it would be a threat.
Territories.
It would be a threat to them.
Population threat. Yep, there will still remain the population growth.
But you're saying population. I think it's more of a threat because if without the active occupation, with all these resources going to that, then where are all these resources going to go? If Israel isn't rallying behind the flag in terms of the occupation, even just leaving us alone would be a threat because now they have to look inwards and fix their own issues within Israel, which is something that Israelis do not want to do.
Israel can fix their own social issues. There's not really what are they gonna do at the end of the day? But what are they gonna? They're gonna sit there and watch a rising, prospering Palestinian demographic. They can fix their internal issues, but then what? It doesn't solve their existential problem. That's the problem.
No, it doesn't.
And at the end of the day, you're giving up what? In the mindset of you're somehow religious and leaning Jew. At the end of the day, Jerusalem and Judea, this is the Jewish land. The Judea is the Jewish land, technically.
Ironically, yeah.
If we give this up, we're practically losing for the 4th, 5th, 5th time in a row.
Wait, what do you mean giving it up? Giving up West Bank. I didn't say that. I'm saying don't worry about it being a two-state solution. Something even less than that.
Go
Because
back
we
to
don't.
the 90s.
No, just having something.
Go back to that transition period between 1994 to 2000. That's what you want. And you want to be stuck there.
No, no, not stuck there, not stuck in that position. I'm saying, do you not envision that Palestinians will build if they were left alone and all these hundreds of checkpoints were removed?
Prosperity, growing population, and then what?
And then we don't have to do anything. And then what? We don't have to do anything.
Population grows. Then Palestinians are like, why are we not a state?
Right, that would come years. I mean, that's not important to us. No. It's not important to us. I used to think it is important.
You think you're not the future generation. The future generation will see everything that took place in the past, and they will want to fight.
No, I think if they see a Palestine being grown without it actually being called a Palestinian state officially by the UN, I don't think people would care very much. And on top of that, I think years down the road, 10 years from now, if the Palestinian economy and government is growing and is prospering and is organized, then the UN has no choice but to call it a state. You can't argue that.
There you go. You have a state now.
Right, but we don't have to ask for one now.
You don't have to, dude. That's not a problem now. If on the ground, it's a state. Even if you don't, the eventual reality of a Palestinian state is an existential threat to Israel. That's just a fact.
Yes, I get that.
Okay, so why would they allow an existential threat to grow?
I'm not saying why would they allow. I'm saying would the world allow Palestinians not to? Okay, we're not asking for a state.
The Jewish state.
No.
That's what you're saying.
No. Would the world allow Palestinians to say, okay, we're not asking for a Palestinian state now. We're not. We would like to prove ourselves. Can we have Israel allow us to prove ourselves? And here are some. Here are some.
Israel doesn't want. Israel
doesn't. Right. That's why I'm saying if you speak to the world and say we're not asking for a Palestinian state now, we're just asking to be left alone so we could build our own economy. If you talk to the world this way, that just increases. That we would have an economy. Actually, a lot of Palestinians import directly from Asia. A lot of the economy.
We're part of the Israeli economy. We're their currency, their banks.
Honestly, that's minor. That's minor.
That's further integration.
No. I'm not saying we would take that. I'm saying we would have our own institutions. But we're saying is we don't need a state. Just give us, our land back and let us build our economy so we're not reliant on Israel, and Israel doesn't have to be bothered with us, and we'll have our own security force.
You want your own currency. You want your own government, practically. But quote unquote, it's not called
the rights of man, the law,
we don't even need a currency. We don't need a currency. We can use the dollar. No, we can use the dollar. The Jordanian, whatever. We don't need our own currency.
It would be a disaster if we adopt the Jordanian currency.
Okay, but we can use the dollar. We can use the Chinese.
We already, in a way, use the dollar. The dollar is being used. Okay, but still, it's not going to change anything. You're delaying the inevitable. If I'm an Israeli, I am not going to allow this reality to happen.
I'm not talking to you as an Israeli. I am talking to the world, the UN, the US, the people, social media, saying that, okay, we don't have to have a state right now, but we just want to be left alone. Can we get rid of the checkpoints? Can we get rid of the settlers? Enough of them so that we can build, and sustain ourselves so that no one has to give us handouts. That's what I'm saying, and that would increase the pressure on Israel to accept it. No, that's not true. No, we wouldn't.
In a state, we're not always going to need handouts.
No, Cynic, look at Singapore. It's It's not a state.
Singapore's what?
It's a city. It's a very small city.
It's a city-state.
Yeah, it's a city. Well, I mean, it not being recognized, it is recognized by the UN, but that's saying
It's a country.
So
Go ahead.
pretty. It's so pretty. It's so pretty.
Yeah, I know.
Singapore's a country.
I remember, just real quick, in the 90s, there's this like young punk white boy. He went over there and spray painted the walls in Singapore, and they gave him a sentence of 32 lashes for doing so. The U.S. was up in arms, so they brought it down to like 18 lashes. And then he got on TV. He was like, "My bottom hurts. It was so traumatic. And he was crying, and he was like 20 something years. I was like, "You're disgusting. You're not a man. Get out of here."
So, a single wrapper of chocolate on the streets, then, I think early 2000s, it was $1,000 fine for a single wrapper on the streets of chocolate. Can you
Okay, I mean,
clean that?
The scary looking back.
a state.
Listen to
No,
Mommy.
forget about the state. No, just, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, I've been.
We don't need currency. We don't need a central bank. We
You
need.
don't
It
need
doesn't matter
anything
what.
central. Use your own currency.
We don't need our own currency right now.
He's saying you don't need it. What
I-
do you?
That's fine.
But you need someone else's.
All you want is security. All you want is security.
Security, so we can build an economy. We don't.
Okay,
You don't have. You don't have the
Listen
potential
to
of
Mommy.
Palestinian people.
The scary looking vaccine shot will help keep you safe.
Right, but we don't have to bring that up. I mean, they know about
They
it.
know it.
But we are talking to the world, not Israel.
And you're not
So-
talking to the world. World is being run by United States. The world is the United States. Why are you not getting that? What part of that do you not understand yet? The world is the United States. This is,
I just want to strangle him.
in an American
It's
empire.
horrible what you're saying.
If you're not getting this, it's your fault.
I am getting the fact that I know that I've learned that I have to speak to my audience. I have to know who my audience is and speak to them, just like the prophet did. He did this. He spoke to his audience. He spoke to different people in different ways. Speak to your audience. Who's your audience? It's not Israel. It's the people.
At the end, you can get all the people to agree with you. I think the whole world, pretty much, if it was up to a vote, yes, they recognize the Palestinian plight, and they'll tell you that this needs to end. But at the end of the day, who's in power? The United States. There's the American interest in this, and there's an oligarchy in America that has a very strong representation of pro-Zionist. And these people are just not going to let this happen, at the end of the day. And I get it. It's going to come down to, this current, unfortunately for them, it's come down to this at this moment. This is the critical moment. They need to wrap it up. I don't believe they're going to be able to wrap it up. But that doesn't mean that they're going to concede or they're going to let us be. I just believe at this point they're going to push for annexation. I think that's the inevitable reality. I don't think that this is escapable. I don't think so. And I hope they do. This is the only way. This is how it all ends. I'm not counting on the world. I mean, hey, if the world comes through and they simply go, okay,
Booger Man.
The Dow. Warheads are stockpiled outside the cities. There is no greater illusion than fear. No greater wrong than preparing to defend yourself. No greater misfortune than having an enemy. Whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. "47. Without opening your door, you can open your heart to the world. Without looking out your window, you can see the essence of the Tao. The more you know, the less you understand. The Master arrives without leaving, sees the light without looking, achieves without doing a thing. "48. In the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things, until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering. 49. The Master has no mind of her own. She works with the mind of the people. She is good to people who are good. She's also good to people who aren't good. This is true goodness. She trusts people who are trustworthy. She also trusts people who aren't trustworthy. This is true trust. The Master's mind is like space. People don't understand her. They look to her and wait. She treats them like her own children. 50. The Master gives himself up to whatever the moment brings. He knows that he is going to die, and he has nothing left to hold on to. No illusions in his mind. No resistances in his body. He doesn't think about his actions. They flow from the core of his being. He holds nothing back from life. Therefore, he is ready for death, as a man is ready for sleep after a good day's work. 51. Every being in the universe is an expression of the Tao. It springs into existence, unconscious, perfect, free, takes on a physical body, lets circumstances complete it. That is why every being spontaneously honors the Tao. The Tao gives birth to all beings, nourishes them, maintains them, cares for them, comforts them, protects them, takes them back to itself, creating without possessing, acting without expecting, guiding without interfering. That is why love of the Tao is in the very nature of things. 52. In the beginning was the Tao. All things issue from it. All things return to it. To find the origin, trace back the manifestations. When you recognize the children and find the mother, you will be free of sorrow. If you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. If you keep your mind from judging and aren't led by the senses, your heart will find peace. Seeing into darkness is clarity. Knowing how to yield is strength. Use your own light and return to the source of light. This is called practicing eternity. 53. The great way is easy, yet people prefer the side paths. Be aware when things are out of balance. Stay centered within the Tao. When rich speculators prosper, while farmers lose their land, when government officials spend money on weapons instead of cures, when the upper class is extravagant and irresponsible, while the poor have nowhere to turn, all this is robbery and chaos. It is not in keeping with the Tao. 54. Whoever is planted in the Tao will not be rooted up. Whoever embraces the Tao will not slip away. Her name will be held in honor from generation to generation. Let the Tao be present in your life, and you will become genuine. Let it be present in your family, and your family will flourish. Let it be present in your country, and your country will be an example to all countries in the world. Let it be present in the universe, and the universe will sing. How do I know this is true? By looking inside myself. 55. He who is in harmony with the Tao is like a newborn child. Its bones are soft, its muscles are weak, but its grip is powerful. It doesn't know about the union of male and female, yet its penis can stand erect. So intense is its vital power. It can scream its head off all day, yet it never becomes hoarse. So complete is its harmony. The Master's power is like this. He lets all things come and go effortlessly, without desire. He never expects results. Thus he is never disappointed. He is never disappointed. Thus his spirit never grows old. 56. Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. Close your mouth. Block off your senses. Blunt your sharpness. Untie your knots. Soften your glare. Settle your dust. This is the primal identity. Be like the Tao. It can't be approached or withdrawn from, benefited or harmed, honored or brought into disgrace. It gives itself up continually. That is why it endures. 57. If you want to be a great leader, you must learn to follow the Tao. Stop trying to control. Let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. The more prohibitions you have, the less virtuous people will be. The more weapons you have, the less secure people will be. The more subsidies you have, the less self-reliant people will be. Therefore, the Master says, I let go of the law, and people become honest. I let go of economics, and people become prosperous. I let go of religion, and people become serene. I let go of all desire for the common good, and the good becomes common as grass. 58. If a country is governed with tolerance, the people are comfortable and honest. If a country is governed with repression, the people are depressed and crafty. When the will to power is in charge, the higher the ideals, the lower the results. Try to make people happy, and you lay the groundwork for misery. Try to make people moral, and you lay the groundwork for vice. Thus the Master is content to serve as an example and not to impose her will. She is pointed, but doesn't pierce. Straightforward, but supple. Radiant, but easy on the eyes. 59. For governing a country well, there is nothing better than moderation. The mark of a moderate man is freedom from his own ideas. Tolerant like the sky, all-pervading like sunlight, firm like a mountain, supple like a tree in the wind. He has no destination in view, and makes use of anything life happens to bring his way. Nothing is impossible for him. Because he has let go, he can care for the people's welfare, as a mother cares for her child. 60. Governing a large country is like frying a small fish. You spoil it with too much poking. Center your country in the Tao, and evil will have no power. Not that it isn't there, but you'll be able to step out of its way. Give evil nothing to oppose, and it will disappear by itself. 61. When a country obtains great power, it becomes like the sea. All streams run downward into it. The more powerful it grows, the greater the need for humility. Humility means trusting the Tao, thus never needing to be defensive. A great nation is like a great man. When he makes a mistake, he realizes it. Having realized it, he admits it. Having admitted it, he corrects it. He considers those who point out his faults as his most benevolent teachers. He thinks of his enemy as the shadow that he himself casts. If a nation is centered in the Tao, if it nourishes its own people and doesn't meddle in the affairs of others, it will be a light to all nations in the world. 62. The Tao is the center of the universe, the good man's treasure, the bad man's refuge. Honors can be bought with fine words. Respect can be won with good deeds. But the Tao is beyond all value, and no one can achieve it. Thus, when a new leader is chosen, don't offer to help him with your wealth or your expertise. Offer instead to teach him about the Tao. Why did the ancient masters esteem the Tao? Because being one with the Tao, when you seek, you find. And when you make a mistake, you are forgiven. That is why everybody loves it. 63. Act without doing. Work without effort. Think of the small as large, and the few as many. Confront the difficult while it is still easy. Accomplish the great task by a series of small acts. The master never reaches for the great. Thus she achieves greatness. When she runs into a difficulty, she stops and gives herself to it. She doesn't cling to her own comfort. Thus, problems are no problem for her. 64. What is rooted is easy to nourish. What is recent is easy to correct. What is brittle is easy to break. What is small is easy to scatter. Prevent trouble before it arises. Put things in order before they exist. A giant pine tree grows from a tiny sprout. The journey of 1,000 miles starts from beneath your feet. Rushing into action, you fail. Trying to grasp things, you lose them. Forcing a project to completion, you ruin what was almost ripe. Therefore, the master takes action by letting things take their course. He remains as calm at the end as at the beginning. He has nothing, thus has nothing to lose. What he desires is non-desire. What he learns is to unlearn. He simply reminds people of who they have always been. He cares about nothing but the Tao. Thus, he can care for all things. 65. The ancient masters didn't try to educate the people, but kindly taught them to not know. When they think that they know the answers, people are difficult to guide. When they know that they don't know, people can find their own way. If you want to learn how to govern, avoid being clever or rich. The simplest pattern is the clearest. Content with an ordinary life, you can show all people the way back to their own true nature. '66. All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. If you want to govern the people, you must place yourself below them. If you want to lead the people, you must learn how to follow them. The master is above the people, and no one feels oppressed. She goes ahead of the people, and no one feels manipulated. The whole world is grateful to her because she competes with no one. No one can compete with her. 67. Some say that my teaching is nonsense. Others call it lofty, but impractical. But to those who have looked inside themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. And to those who put it into practice, this loftiness has roots that go deep. I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and in thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, You reconcile all beings in the world. 68. The best athlete wants his opponent at his best. The best general enters the mind of his enemy. The best businessman serves the communal good. The best leader follows the will of the people. All of them embody the virtue of non-competition. Not that they don't love to compete, but they do it in the spirit of play. In this, they are like children and in harmony with the Tao. 69. The generals have a saying: rather than make the first move, it is better to wait and see. Rather than advance an inch, it is better to retreat a yard. This is called going forward without advancing, pushing back without using weapons. There's no greater misfortune than underestimating your enemy. Underestimating your enemy means thinking that he is evil. Thus, you destroy your three treasures and become an enemy yourself. When two great forces oppose each other, the victory will go to the one that knows how to yield. 70. My teachings are easy to understand and easy to put into practice. Yet your intellect will never grasp them, and if you try to practice them, you'll fail. My teachings are older than the world. How can you grasp their meaning? If you want to know me, look inside your heart. 71. Not knowing is true knowledge. Presuming to know is a disease. First realize that you are sick. Then you can move toward health. The master is her own physician. She has healed herself of all knowing. Thus, she is truly whole. 72. When they lose their sense of awe, people turn to religion. When they no longer trust themselves, they begin to depend upon authority. Therefore, the master steps back so that people won't be confused. He teaches without a teaching, so that people will have nothing to learn. 73. The Tao is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. Its net covers the whole universe. And though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. 74. If you realize that all things change, there is nothing you will try to hold on to. If you aren't afraid of dying, there is nothing you can't achieve. Trying to control the future is like trying to take the master carpenter's place. When you handle the master carpenter's tools, chances are that you'll cut your hand. 75. When taxes are too high, people go hungry. When the government is too intrusive, people lose their spirit. Act for the people's benefit. Trust them. Leave them alone. 76. Men are born soft and supple. Dead, they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant. Dead, they are brittle and dry. Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail. 77. As it acts in the world, the Tao is like the bending of a bow. The top is bent downward. The bottom is bent up. It adjusts excess and deficiency so that there is perfect balance. It takes from what is too much and gives to what isn't enough. Those who try to control, who use force to protect their power, go against the direction of the Tao. They take from those who don't have enough and give to those who have far too much. The master can keep giving because there is no end to her wealth. She acts without expectation, succeeds without taking credit, and doesn't think that she is better than anyone else. 78. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this is true, but few can put it into practice. Therefore, the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. Evil cannot enter his heart, because he has given up helping. He is people's greatest help. True words seem paradoxical. 79. Failure is an opportunity. If you blame someone else, there is no end to the blame. Therefore, the master fulfills her own obligations and corrects her own mistakes. She does what she needs to do and demands nothing of others. 80. If a country is governed wisely, its inhabitants will be content. They enjoy the labor of their hands and don't waste time inventing labor-saving machines. Since they dearly love their homes, they aren't interested in travel. There may be a few wagons and boats, but these don't go anywhere. There may be an arsenal of weapons, but nobody ever uses them. People enjoy their food, take pleasure in being with their families, spend weekends working in their gardens, delight in the doings of the neighborhood. And even though the next country is so close that people can hear its roosters crowing and its dogs barking, they are content to die of old age without ever having gone to see it. 81. True words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't true. Wise men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating. The master leads. Tao Te Ching can be translated as the book of the imminence of the way, or the book of the way and of how it manifests itself in the world, or simply the book of the way. Since it is already well known by its Chinese title, I have let that stand. About Lao Tzu, its author, there's practically nothing to be said. He may have been an older contemporary of Confucius, 551 to 479 BCE, and may have held the position of archive keeper in one of the petty kingdoms of the time. But all the information that has come down to us is highly suspect. Even the meaning of his name is uncertain. The most likely interpretations, the old master, or more picturesquely, the old boy. Like an Iroquois woodsman, he left no traces. All he left us is his book, the classic manual on the art of living, written in a style of gem-like lucidity, radiant with humor and grace, and large-heartedness and deep wisdom, one of the wonders of the world. People usually think of Lao Tzu as a hermit, a dropout from society, dwelling serenely in some mountain hut, unvisited except perhaps by the occasional traveler arriving from a 60s joke to ask, "What is the meaning of life?" But it's clear from his teachings that he deeply cared about society, if society means the welfare of one's fellow human beings. His book is, among other things, a treatise on the art of government, whether of a country or of a child. The misperception may arise from his insistence on wei wu wei, literally doing, not doing, which has been seen as passivity. Nothing could be further from the truth. A good athlete can enter a state of body awareness in which the right stroke or the right movement happens by itself, effortlessly, without any interference of the conscious will. This is a paradigm for non-action, the purest and most effective form of action. The game plays the game. The poem writes the poem. We can't tell the dancer from the dance. Less and less do you need to force things, until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. Nothing is done because the doer has wholeheartedly vanished into the deed. The fuel has been completely transformed into flame. This nothing is in fact everything. It happens when we trust the intelligence of the universe in the same way that an athlete or a dancer trusts the superior intelligence of the body. Hence Lao Tzu's emphasis on softness. Softness means the opposite of rigidity and is synonymous with suppleness, adaptability, endurance. Anyone who has seen a Tai Chi or Aikido master doing not doing will know how powerful this softness is. Lao Tzu's central figure is a man or woman whose life is in perfect harmony with the way things are. This is not an idea, it is a reality. I have seen it. The master has mastered nature, not in the sense of conquering it, but of becoming it. In surrendering to the Tao, in giving up all concepts, judgments, and desires, her mind has grown naturally compassionate. She finds, deep in her own experience, the central truths of the art of living, which are paradoxical only on the surface, that the more truly solitary we are, the more compassionate we can be. The more we let go of what we love, the more present our love becomes. The clearer our insight into what is beyond good and evil, the more we can embody the good. Until finally she is able to say, in all humility, I am the Tao, the truth, the life. The teaching of the Tao Te Ching is moral in the deepest sense, unencumbered by any concept of sin. The master doesn't see evil as a force to resist, but simply as an opaqueness, a state of self-absorption, which is in disharmony with the universal process, so that, as with a dirty window, the light can't shine through. This freedom from moral categories allows him his great compassion for the wicked and the selfish. Thus, the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret. The listener will notice that in the many passages where Lao Tzu describes the master, I've used the pronoun she at least as often as he. The Chinese language doesn't make this kind of distinction. In English, we have to choose. But since we are all potentially the master, since the master is, essentially, us, I felt it would be untrue to present a male archetype, as other versions have ironically done. Ironically, because of all the great world religions, the teaching of Lao Tzu is by far the most female. Of course, you should feel free throughout the recording to substitute he for she, or vice versa. As to method, I worked from Paul Karas's literal version, which provides English equivalents, often very quaint ones, alongside each of the Chinese ideograms. I also consulted dozens of translations into English, German, and French. But the most essential preparation for my work was a 14 years long course of Zen training, which brought me face to face with Lao Tzu and his true disciples and heirs, the early Chinese Zen masters. With great poetry, the freest translation is sometimes the most faithful. We must try its effect as an English poem, Dr. Johnson said. That is the way to judge of the merit of a translation. I have often been fairly literal, or as literal as one can be with such a subtle, kaleidoscopic book as the Tao Te Ching. But I have also paraphrased, expanded, contracted, interpreted, worked with the text, played with it, until it became embodied in a language that felt genuine to me. If I haven't always translated Lao Tzu's words, my intention has always been to translate his mind. Describing the indescribable, teaching the unteachable, pointing the way to the way. What does Lao Tzu think he is doing here? It can't be done. No way. Hence, Po Chu-yi, poet and stand-up comedian, wrote, "He who talks doesn't know. He who knows doesn't talk." That is what Lao Tzu told us in a book of 5,000 words. If he was the one who knew, how could he have been such a blabbermouth? That's the problem with spiritual teachers. They have to be blabbermouths. But their words are, in the traditional Buddhist metaphor, fingers pointing at the moon. If you watch the finger, you can't see the moon. How meticulous the great masters had to be. A monk asked Matsu, "Why do you teach mind is Buddha?" Matsu said, "To stop a
that's
beat."
withstood the test of time, right? This kind of thing doesn't just disappear overnight. They have this reputation of being safe haven magnets.
Yeah, relative to other currencies, yeah.
Yeah, relative to other currencies and just in general, right? So obviously gold is the number one safe haven. After that, it's been the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc. Whenever you see market volatility, it would be gold. I would say these two are even ahead of silver, right? Like even
Wait, hold on. We need to slow down. The yen's inflation has been fairly high, from what I understand.
So there's levels to it, right? But if you go back 10 years, it would trade between the 120 and 100 range, right? Sometimes it would go as low as 130, but it's always range bound. The point is, it's always I'm saying when it goes too low, it's
If an
great
expert
to
does not
enter.
have some
It's
problem
just-
to vex
just
him
position
by
yourself-
object.
Just position yourself and wait for the headlines to present themselves, right? You might have to sit in it for a few months. People were laughing at me in the room when I was the yen was at 155 back then, and I said it's oversold. It's probably a good time to enter. There was an opportunity that came maybe a month after I said that. It corrected so sharply, came to the mid 140s. But look where it is right now. Once again, it's like less than 144.
Listen, the yen. The problem with the Japanese yen is that everybody was using everybody was basically taking loans in yen, and then they're buying dollar denominated assets, and then they're reinvesting it back in, and they're just taking LTV on LTV on LTV, and they're just loan looping back and forth, which is fine until it doesn't work, right? Until the yen and the dollar depeg, and then that's going to lead that can lead to a lot of trouble, right? But yeah, no, the yen is always fairly stable relative to other currencies on the margin, yeah. So you're right about that.
The way I see it, I literally keep Swiss francs in my safe deposit box. Right? I have bills of Swiss francs in my safe deposit box for this reason. Right?
I mean, I don't know, bro. I mean, all the government currencies suck.
Everything sucks. That's why you gotta be have as much as everything as you can and be as diversified as you can.
I don't know, bro. I don't really believe in the diversification thing.
It's true. It's the law of large numbers. I've actually seen it play out in my portfolio where if I would have done it a different way, it would not have worked out. I'm just saying you get these outliers when you really when you spread it as much as you can, and it's just an index. It's just pure statistics.
I mean,
I entered WTI the other day when it dropped to 61. I bought WTI, and you know, like I Juche, right? In the other room, he was asking me today. He's like, "Why? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense." But look, you know, the trade worked out for me. I'm up 10% on my position. If it went against me, I would have dollar cost averaged, plain and simple strategy. You know, nothing fancy. But yeah, this is what I look for: is these sort of. I don't stick to one particular asset class. I go across the board and I look for these opportunities where something is heavily oversold and it just, you know, the odds are, the probabilities aligns in my favor.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, Juche's a good guy. He's like, I don't understand like his strategy though, but his strategy is a little weird.
Yeah, it is very weird, and I think so. He sent me like a couple of the podcasts he listens to. I think he follows these gurus too much, who, you know, claim to be technical experts. I think, you know, technicals has its place. Fundamentals have their place, right?
You mean TA? You're talking about?
Let me.
You're talking about charting, right? You're talking about charting, or are you talking about like Arthur Hayes and stuff like that? I mean, he's basically
Lonely Republicans.
Dude, I've known Juche for such a long time. I even worked with him with the Vagabonds when I worked with them, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Dude, his problem is that he's like so bullish on China, and he's just fucking wrong.
Disingenuous to claim that you didn't understand the concept of morality. And so it ended up with you basically kind of just playing like aloof or something. I'm not sure exactly what you were doing, but he was like, okay, I'm not
Is
gonna
that
do
you
this
projecting,
anymore.
Andrew?
Huh? What'd you say? Oh, comedian's gonna troll, so just be careful. Good to see a comedian.
It's not a troll. It's not a troll. I mean, I'm a professional.
I remember that.
Communication is hypnosis.
Okay. You have too many clowns. You have too many clowns on the stage.
Yeah, let's get on the God claim. So, I want to hear the best argument for the existence of a God, and what God do you actually claim to exist for anybody on the stage?
Andrew, feel free. God exists because.
I'm tired of listening to Andrew. Andrew fucking talks too much. Sorry.
It shouldn't be about talking too much. It should be about making the case.
Nah, that was a joke. But I do want to hear from anybody on stage.
I think it depends on what angle you're coming from. If you're coming from if you're trying to convince atheists versus you're trying to convince somebody from a different religion, so it would depend what angle you would need to come from.
No, it's not.
I
It's
think
not an
that you
angle I'm
platform
coming from. I'm
Andrew
saying like
is
what
troll.
just what would be your best like convincing argument?
Here's one
Regardless of who you're
recently
talking
that I took a liking to. Interpretations of quantum physics are shown to presuppose the reality of consciousness. But if a minimal realism about the external world is true, then the consciousness presupposed by quantum reality cannot be only that of the scientific observer, cannot be only local, but must be global. Global consciousness is argued to have all and only the essential properties of God. Quantum reality depends on God's consciousness, and the physical world depends on quantum reality. Therefore, the physical world depends on God's consciousness.
So that would be your argument to a
Ping me
layman
and we will record the words of the
about
master.
the existence of God.
Not even layman.
Well, that's one recent one from the Faculty of Philosophy out of Oxford.
Oh, okay,
Let's not look at it as layman. Let's look at it as every concept that they said, right? So start over. Don't speak so quickly that nobody can interject and think that they see something wrong with it.
So, I don't understand what you're asking.
No. So dude just spoke and said that they have based off essentially quantum mechanics. Mm-hmm. Now I'm listening the whole time, and I'm trying to think about what their statement and it's so quick that it doesn't seem like we have a way to think about the counter argument. So step by step, dude, tell us the study that you
Objective
came
quantum
across.
metaphysical.
It would
mechanics.
help if you dropped the link of the study, and then we could read it alongside and see if what you say is what they say, or if you've come to a separate conclusion from what the article actually says. But so start again.
Okay,
Don't speak
yeah.
so definitive.
And this is Stephen Priest from the Faculty of Philosophy from the University of Oxford. Interpretations of quantum physics presuppose the reality of consciousness. But if a minimal realism about the external world is
So
true,
presupposition is the claim.
right?
Usually
But
only
if-
the masters words I
If a
listen to
minimal
sitting for 30
realism
minutes.
about the external world is true, then the consciousness presupposed by quantum reality cannot be only that of the scientific observer, cannot be only local, but must be global. Global consciousness is argued to have all and only the essential properties of God. Quantum reality depends on God's consciousness, and the physical world depends on quantum reality. Therefore, the physical world depends on God's consciousness.
So I'm not reading anything that you've sent, and you haven't sent anything. I would like
It's
to
in the
read
back
it,
channel for sure.
Hurry,
Okay,
the
so
master
it's in the
does
chat.
not tarry.
Or the back channel.
Does not tarry.
Sorry if you sent me something. Then
Does not tarry,
I'll look at it.
Adoro.
So
Or the
how
chat
about that?
is the
Everything
right
must
term.
be business way.
The chat. I'm looking. Okay. I'm going to read this before I speak to you.
Swiftness.
Because I think that that's what good faith.
Hurry, the master does not tarry,
Your
Adoro.
position of what
Everything
you
must be in a business
propose.
way.
So I'm gonna mute
Swiftness.
up, and then I'm going to read this and see anything. I'll be.
Do you guys remember my question? Alright, I'll ask it again. What would be the best argument? And we went to quantum physics.
Alright, I got
For
one.
the late
Hurry,
person.
the master
Yeah,
does
so-
not
so
tarry,
do you
Adoro.
remember my
Everything
question
must
now?
be in a business
one.
way. Swiftness.
Alright, good. Yeah.
Alright, if I walked you into a library and told you that all the books in alphabetical order and everything organized in the library happened spontaneously out of nowhere, would you believe me?
I would have to see evidence.
You would have to see evidence that happened randomly.
No, I would have to actually investigate what your claim.
So you would not walk into the room and think, no, some intelligent design did this.
No.
Okay, fair enough. That was the argument I was going to make, that if you couldn't walk into a library and say, this was done by some intelligent design, then you couldn't look at the world and not think that either. So
I mean, after investigating it, then yes, I would say yes. This was intelligently designed, yes. But that would require me investigating it and also finding that there's evidence during my investigation. So yeah, I don't understand how this isn't an answer to my question.
well, because some people I've spoken to said, well, it'd be impossible for me to walk into a library and think that this just happened randomly. All the books in perfect alphabetical order, lined up, decorated, organized, and this happened just randomly. Like, they're like, I would never believe that. Well, if you would, and a lot of people said that they would never believe that. So I'm like, well, if you would never believe that, then you cannot. Then you have to also believe that the world and how everything is organized in the world would also had to have been done by intelligent design.
I don't think those two things are comparable.
I would argue they're not, because I would argue that the world is much more complex and
Right.
designed than the library. So if you couldn't fathom the library, then you would have to concede to the idea that the world was created by an intelligent creator.
So one thing is saying that when you posit the librarian or whoever,
It's time for the
whoever's organizing
master's
books,
words.
we know that was something that was designed by humans. First of all, second of all, we know that it was organized. Know that, and when you compare that to the existence of anything or the world, you can't say that. Okay, so what comparable thing in the world can you say that is comparable to someone organizing books in alphabetical order?
Genes in your DNA.
Can you elaborate?
Well, if you look at genes and how they work to like describe how tall you're going to be, what color eyes you're going to have, what kind of blood type you're going to have, like when you look at all the things that makes a human person, it's much more complex than alphabetical books in a library.
No, I agree with that. But I'm saying that it's not. I don't think it's comparable to just simply alphabetizing books and like it's a lot more complex.
Yeah, it's a lot more complex. So something as simple as looking at a library, like if you walk into a library and saw everything organized in alphabetical, your brain would initially go, somebody had to have done this, right? I don't have evidence, but I'm alluding to somebody probably did this. Like, right? You like, you could go, I need evidence to prove that, but I'm probably assuming somebody did this, right? And so most people, if you're being intellectually honest, would go, somebody probably set this up, right? And so if you can look at a library that's not as complex as the human gene and how people are set up, you would probably go, well, if somebody did intelligent design that library, the world's much more complex and much more organized in a lot of areas than that, I would assume that some intelligence design
wrote the poor Huron
existence
statement
of the universe.
No, see, that's a leap in logic. Because we know.
Not only that.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Not only that, but can't believe we're entertaining intelligent design.
She loves the law.
Arguments, but go ahead.
She's a
Yeah, no,
Thelemite.
you're right. I don't believe intelligent, but that's a leap in logic because
she's a Thelemite, not a Muslim.
A library, we know a person did that.
But what if you didn't know, right?
That doesn't mean you can extrapolate to, okay, we have to assume someone did this other thing that's also
Prove it, Scarlet Woman.
Seems to be designed.
Well, okay, what if you took humans off the planet, you never met another human being, you just walked into a library, you never met a human being.
Libraries don't exist at that point.
But I'm saying, like, let's say you never seen a human being, you walked into this space, right? It doesn't have to be a library, and you saw a formation of whatever rocks lined up from smallest to biggest, color coded. Would you think somebody set that up there, or would you think that just happened randomly?
I don't understand. I don't understand the question.
If you saw organization, extreme organization with